I heard that Kentucky Senate President David Williams is proposing Kentucky legislation to force the federal government to have a U.S. constitutional amendment requiring a balanced federal budget.
Well, on the surface, that does sound just wonderful, dear, but it's all just so much political rhetoric.
Do you mean because David Williams has been the president of the Kentucky Senate, where he presided over the massive debt that has made Kentucky the state with the highest debt-to-GDP ratio?
Exactly. Williams either caused or went along with all of the tax increases and the even larger spending increases that have bankrupted Kentucky, and now he has the unmitigated gall to call for a federal constitutional amendment requiring a balanced federal budget. That's why I said it's all just election year politics.
Yeah. David Williams is running for governor in 2011, and he's hoping that Kentucky voters will see this fraudulent and grossly insincere balanced budget amendment and think Williams is a fiscal conservative who believes in states' rights, when he's anything but that.
It's just like a couple of months ago when David Williams was telling Kentucky voters that he was the Tea Party candidate. In some political circles, they're still laughing about that big lie. The Tea Party had Williams in hot water over that ridiculous claim. There's a lesson for you, dear. You shouldn't lie, but if you do, pick a lie that's halfway believable.
I totally remember that. The Tea Party slammed the door shut on Williams in a hurry.
The real irony here is that the Kentucky Constitution has a balanced budget amendment, and Williams and Beshear have both been crowing about how they balanced the budget. But of course, despite the constitutional requirement to balance the budget, they don't actually balance the budget.
I'm confused. If the Kentucky Constitution requires a balanced budget, how can these politicians get away with not balancing the budget?
It's simple, dear. They balance the state budget with debt. Years ago, the legislature would issue bonds to pay for long-term public works they couldn't afford. That's bad enough, but now they issue bonds to create debt to pay the interest on their previous debt. It's the classic downward debt spiral. Dave Ramsey needs to tell David Williams to cut up Kentucky's credit cards and stop spending money we don't have.
The state debt is bad for numerous reasons. I'm concerned about Kentucky not being able to pay its bills and being a destitute ward of the federal government. David Williams acts like he's for state sovereignty, and he's standing up to the federal government by pushing for a constitutional amendment that would force them to balance their budget, but the truth is, Williams is grabbing federal block grant money, and a lot of that comes with big federal strings attached. It obligates us to a lot of future spending, and gives the federal government control over all kinds of stuff that is none of their business.
There has been popular support for a federal balanced budget amendment for decades, and David Williams never did a thing to make that happen. Until he decided to run for governor. It's obvious that David Williams is not only a career politician, he's a big fat hypocrite and a damn liar.
It seems like the people want the U.S. Congress to balance their budget every year, but Congress doesn't want to be forced to balance their budget. So how does David Williams propose we pass a federal balanced budget amendment to our U.S. Constitution, if Congress has refused to pass the amendment?
That's the worst part. David Williams is proposing a constitutional convention outside the usual congressional legislative process. The problem with that is there are no limits. No checks and balances. There was a con in 1787 to fix the original Articles of Confederation, and instead, they threw out the articles and wrote an entirely new constitution. In doing so, they dissolved the original nation and founded a new nation. That con was run by statesmen such as George Washington, James Madison and Benjamin Franklin. Can you imagine what would result if we had a con today, run by Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Harry Reid and John Boehner?
That idea scares the crap out of me. It'd be time to drag out the rice, beans, guns and ammo. Stick a fork in our country, because it's done.